Hello everyone, welcome to HappierHour. We are starting this podcast with an intention to discuss about topics that really matters, topics about mental and emotional well-being. We'll be calling various professionals like psychologists, psychiatrists and therapists on our podcast, and we'll be discussing about various issues. Without further ado, I would like to invite our today's guest, Dr. Ashwini Chube. She is a life transformation coach, metaphysical teacher, Reiki grandmaster, NLP practitioner, and an access consciousness facilitator. Welcome Ashwini to the show.
Thank you very much, Sinam.
How are you doing today?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. And today we are going to talk about, a topic that makes us human, emotions.
Absolutely.
You're working a lot with people. You have worked with more than 5,000 clients,
Yes.
and every day you see, people coming up with some issues related to emotions, okay? So first of all, I would like to understand, what are emotions and, how many emotions do we have as a human being?
Okay. I think this is a great question and a great topic because emotions is what makes us human. While we were growing up, when I was in my teens, in my 20s, I often found that a lot of times when we expressed emotions, it was considered not so cool, right?
Yeah.
So when we are growing up, when we are in college, oh, don't be emotional. It's a very common line which comes to us. And over a period of time, as I started in this field, I slowly started realizing how important it is to work with emotions, to process emotions, to express emotions, but most important, to be aware of emotions. Because without emotions, we would be like a robot. So emotions is a natural part of a human behavior. Anyone and everyone will have emotions. When we say someone is emotional, I would say they are aware of their emotions and are expressing their emotions. When people say that I am not emotional, yes, they have to be aware of their emotions at some point of time. Because if you are not expressing emotions, you are numbing them. And if you are numbing emotions, that will cause...
But then in terms of, expressing emotions, everyone is okay with expressing happiness, right? Everyone wants
Yes,
happiness to be
yes.
expressed. But then there are other emotions as well.
Yeah.
Like, you have anger, you have fear, you have disgust. Nobody wants those emotions.
Absolutely.
How does that work? Because we have such a big spectrum of emotions, but we want only happiness.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how exactly does it work?
So let us put them into two categories, the good emotions and the bad emotions, right? Now, when it is about happiness, yes, we can express it easily. When it's about anger, if I'm angry and if I'm throwing things at you, it can be very toxic and hazardous. So, what do we exactly mean by emotions? Because when people think about, when I say express your emotions, do we need to express anger every day? Do we need to express fear every day? So the answer is you need to process the difficult emotions,
Okay.
but not deny them.
But how do you process emotions? What
Yes.
is emotional processing?
Okay. So for instance, you are angry about something,
Okay.
right? Now most people think anger is black and white. Either you are a person
Anger
who
is
doesn't-
bad. That's how we call it, right?
Yes.
Anger is
Yes,
bad.
anger is bad. Underlying anger, there is always fear. Why is someone angry? Because that person has some fear inside of something which they are numbing out and camouflaging it, expressing it in a different manner, which is what anger is. Now let us take two people. There is person A. These are two extremes what I am going to talk about. There is person A who throws things, who yells at people, who shouts at people. Maybe we have seen heads of corporate organizations who do that, creating a toxic culture. And
Correct.
often anger is misunderstood as something which is a sign of power. It is not. So I will come to that in a bit. Let me first put these two categories. The first one is the person expresses anger. He throws files, he yells at people. He creates a terror. He or she creates a terror where they are. They could be a parent, they could be a boss, and people could get terrified of that. it could create a lot of impact on the people around that person. Is this good or bad? This is definitely terrible, because he or she will make lives of everyone around them miserable. Let's take the second category. A person,
But then, I mean, the example that you're saying, I mean, in the case that you are defining, anger is not always bad, right? Because there are actually sometimes situations wherein,
yes,
you know, you need to tell the other person they are wrong.
Yes.
And, you know, when you are telling the other person, you need to be firm. Because,
yes,
I mean, एकदम प्यार मोहब्बत से बताओगे कि अरे गलत हो तुम,
Yes, but so-
नहीं समझ आता लोगों को, थोड़ा सा मतलब वो मतलब टोन चेंज होता है, you say okay,
yes,
dude, you're
yes.
wrong.
So I would say that is assertiveness. Let's come to that in a bit.
Okay.
So when you are telling your subordinates to do something, you can be assertive without being angry. A lot of people believe assertiveness is same as anger, it is same as aggressiveness. No, these are three different things. So I'll come to that in a bit, but let's take these two categories. So the first person is angry, he's yelling and he's creating havoc. The second person is someone who says that, oh, I'm not at all angry. I don't get angry. I don't feel anything. I'm a very peace-loving person. Is that person truly peace-loving, or is that person numbing? So these are two extremes, and both of them are absolutely unhealthy, because the first one will of course create a direct impact on that person and the surroundings. The second one, when the person is not being angry, that person becomes, he or she suppresses, numbs that anger, which goes inside the body, creates a lot of disharmony, eventually creating diseases. We will talk about how anger creates diseases and how emotions create diseases too.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, anger, or say for example bad emotions,
Yeah.
how do you process them, or how do you, you know, be okay with them?
Yes. So let's take the same example, both categories. The first person has to sit with the anger, and overall, if the person has been doing that for 20-30 years, it's become a habit.
But it's not a good feeling, right?
Absolutely
I'm angry,
not.
why would I sit?
Yes.
I mean, I need to shout, I just need to take it out.
But that's what, so that's a habit. Because we were told the only way to express anger is this is the only way. Right? Now, when we say we have to do the homework or sit with the emotions, that will not happen when you are angry or where the trigger is coming. You can't expect that if you have a deadline and if the staff is not ready, they have not arrived, the deadline is right there, of course you will be angry. I can't tell you to sit, relax, breathe. You will hit me as well, right? But where will the work, when will the work begin? So the work begins when you are not triggered.
Okay.
But I always say make a note of all your emotions. So when you are not triggered, look at maybe say the next day or in the same day in the evening. When the trigger has settled down, ask yourself, okay, what made me angry? Why was I angry? I was angry because my team was not there. I wanted to finish a task say by 10 a.m. when the deadline was at 10 a.m. However, I did not see the results. I was afraid of the consequences that my client will, and hence I yelled at my team.
But I think उसके बाद वो भी सोचना चाहिए ना कि ठीक है गुस्सा तो हो गए, चीख चिल्ला भी लिए
जी,
उसके बाद कुछ हो रहा है क्या उससे? बिकॉज आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल फ्रॉम माय पर्सनल लाइफ. जैसे मेरा बेटा है, छोटा है अभी, तो ना खाना नहीं खाता था, तो मतलब कोशिश करी खा ले, नहीं खा रहा है. एक दिन मेरे को बहुत ज़बरदस्त गुस्सा आया, मैंने कहा चाटा लगा देती हूँ. सर लगा दिया मैंने कहा अब तो ये खाना खाएगा. गुस्से में चाटा लगा दिया मैंने, वो रोया, खूब रोया, लेकिन उसने खाना नहीं खाया. एंड देन आई थॉट टू माई सेल्फ कि मैंने मारा ही क्यों, मतलब बिकॉज देयर वाज अ गिल्ट आल्सो इन मी कि ये थप्पड़ मार के कुछ हुआ नहीं. मतलब मैंने पहले गुस्सा किया.
But that's what you are told, right? We've always told that this is the only way to express anger. This is the only way to express the emotion. Let's not even talk about anger. This is the way to express, say, frustration. Why is my child not eating? If he doesn't eat, he will not get enough nutrition. He will fall sick. Something will happen to him.
नहीं, आई थिंक मेरे अंदर कुछ कंट्रोल वाला भी था कि मेरे को वो कंट्रोल करनी थी वो
yes,
चीज
yes.
कि ये खाना क्यों नहीं खा रहा है, मतलब आई नो एक दिन खाना नहीं खाएगा कुछ नहीं होने वाला, एंड
Yes.
एज अ ह्यूमन खाना इवेंचुअली उसे खाना ही पड़ेगा.
Absolutely, he will get hungry and he will eat. But now, because you spoke of control, the every emotion which is a lower emotion, like we spoke about anger,
What
frustration.
is a lower emotion?
So there is a scale of emotions, which is a very beautiful scale of different emotions at each level. Every emotion has a frequency.
Okay.
So at a lower end of the spectrum, there are emotions like anger, fear, frustration, guilt and shame are in fact at the lowest level. Why are guilt and shame at the lowest level? Because that is the lowest frequency a human can go through. Now, it's very strange, but we never thought about it this way, that when our emotions are keeping us, the lower ones or the not so good emotions, see in layman's language I would say not so good emotions and the good emotions. If you look at the scale, on the scale the lower end emotions are the ones which will always give you a negative feeling.
Because you feel down, right? You're
You
not
feel down.
feeling good.
Yes.
You're not
yes.
feeling up to the moment.
Absolutely. And every emotion which is a lower emotion, like grief, like fear, like worry, like shame, like guilt, all of them. Think of all emotions which make you feel unsettled. All of them are the lower emotions. So rather than calling them good and bad, because I think at some level we need to be aware of all of that. If you are angry, when you are angry, you do not process it at that time, initially of course. At a later level you get used to, you get habituated to work through your emotions and you sit back and reflect. But initially, if you are angry, you have to go and sit back and see what made you angry. One of the best ways of processing emotions is, I would say, use a paper pen, take a journal, write down what went behind. How did I feel? I felt
मतलब मोस्टली वैसा होता है ना कि जब मैं गुस्सा हूँ तो दूसरों के बारे में ज़्यादा लिखती हूँ, इसने ये किया, इसने ये किया, इसीलिए ये हो गया. सो मतलब व्हेन आई एम जर्नलिंग, डू आई राइट अबाउट द इवेंट दैट हैपेंड, और
what was going inside of me is what is important. What was going inside of me? There was a need to control because I had to go with the deadline. I was frustrated. I was also disappointed because I had given clear instructions to my staff, yet they did not show up on time. Imagine there is an event and people don't show up. It's very natural. But why do these events show up? Because somewhere the communication which we are giving to people has to be in such a manner. So there is a long journey behind all of that. But when we start looking at what actually happened in that incident, it will help us not just to work back towards it, but next time we will be more mindful. So that is the first example. You are someone who is yelling at everyone. Very rarely these kind of people will sit back, because they will always stay in I am right, because it's a personality type, and that's another very deep study which we will talk about. There are expressive people and there are people who do not express. Now the second one, the person says मुझे गुस्सा ही नहीं आता. And like you said, if you are the one who gets very angry, I was at the other end, say 10-12 years ago, and people would say, you never get angry? And I said, no, I never get angry. I just don't get angry. I thought it was a very good space to be, but it was not. I used to think I'm a kind angel, but then I realized I had so much suppressed anger, which I had never understood until I started studying and I started working on myself, and I realized there was a lot of suppressed anger.
And I mean, you said you had suppressed anger. How did you realize you have suppressed anger in you?
So at some point of time there was disappointment. There was things, when things did not go as per my wish. I was saying I was okay with it, but there was a lot of disappointment, and this is exactly how people go into depression, right? When you are disappointed and constantly disappointed and constantly disappointed, and you feel helpless, and you feel that this is how it's going to be. At some point of time you are angry with the universe, you are angry with everyone around you. You feel that people have let you down and you have let everyone down. But then I realized over a period of time, and then it will start showing up on your body. So
and what exactly did you do? I mean, going back to your own case.
Going back to my own case, of course, with my mentors, I sat with my mentors and I really started working back at how, since when have I suppressed my anger. And then I realized I had suppressed my anger as early as I was 16 or 17. Because I wanted to be the good girl.
Of course.
Right? And as a child, I was very rebellious. I would do all that I wanted, which is what I am right now as well. Because after working through, you get back your original blueprint. That's what, when you do the inner work. So I used to always, I was a go-getter. I would just get what I want. And often a lot of people around me criticize that, oh, they used to tell my parents, your child gets very angry. She's angry. So there are times where you are just vocal about things and you get misunderstood as being angry if you are just being blunt. So we really need to understand.
I think we'll talk about this one later.
Just being assertive is not being angry. But when you are being assertive and the people around you are not getting you, you start getting angry. So as a child, when I was expressive and when people did not get me, I used to be more aggressive. And that made me believe, imagine you are as young as 7 and 8 and you believe that you are an angry person. And you start numbing that because you want to be a good person. Where I read that being angry is not good. Or being expressive is equal to being angry. And I numbed it. So
and probably even asking for what you want is
considered as, yes.
It's considered rude. And if you are a little aggressive, then it's angry.
It's angry.
Yeah.
So looking at these both cases where is one man who is angry and yelling and making others' life miserable, and the other one who is saying that I'm not at all angry. Both are horrible places to be.
Yeah.
But then what's the right way? So the right way is to acknowledge, because anger is also a potency. But it is not that anger is only about leashing others out. If you are angry about something, you know that it's something which is not working right. You have to start making those changes in your habits, in your actions, in your behaviors. Till very recent times, we believed that as a child you can change, once you grow up you cannot. But science has proven there is a beautiful concept called as neuroplasticity, which means at any point of time you can program your neurons to change. And exactly what neuro-linguistic programming, what we work in neuro-linguistic programming. So
do you have clients who have like changed tremendously?
I think that's the core of my work. I think almost.
Do you have any examples?
Yes. So I know people who have been fearful for the longest period of time in their life.
Okay.
Now, when we look at neuroplasticity, what are we saying? An individual will change everything about their thoughts, beliefs, and you are programming your mind to do that. Now, it doesn't matter whether you are 30, you are 40 or you are 50. Earlier people would say, oh, my mother, she's 60. She will not change. But with science has proven, neuroplasticity is exactly that. That you can change anything. The whole crux of my work is around changing behaviors, changing patterns, changing beliefs, and changing the habits.
Going back to the client that you were discussing about, the one who was fearful for most part of her time, you know, what exactly happened with her?
Sure.
Why was she fearful? And you know what, then how did she realize that, you know, she had an issue? Why she came to you and what happened then?
So most people are not aware of their emotions. They come to you with an unsettled feeling. Then you go deeper and you realize that she was fearful about almost everything, even to take the little action. So by fear, I don't mean fear of like crossing the road or climbing. So those are phobias, or we are not going there. She was fearful about taking small decisions in her life. She was afraid that everything will go wrong with her. She was not, whenever something would happen, so for a presentation she would fumble in spite of knowing everything. She would be afraid to speak up to her if she was facing difficulties at work. She would just not speak about it, although she knew that she needed to speak about. In her day-to-day life too, she was living almost like a prisoner of her own thoughts. Now, in every aspect of her life, her fear was shown. When she came and she was sitting like this in front of me. Her hands were like this, her feet were. So even from her posture, you could make out that she was all time living in fear. Now many times people say that I'm not feeling good, I'm feeling low. They use such words. But then of course we ask them questions that what's exactly going on, and for anything she would be saying that no, I will not do it. If I do this, ऐसे करूँगी तो ऐसा होगा, ऐसे करूँगी तो ऐसा हो जाएगा. So now this is a behavior, right? But where does it come from? Over a period of time she has been this way. It has become a habit. Where has that come from? It's a belief. The core of everything is a belief.
But is it like, maybe when she was younger or she was a child, everything she did, she was questioned on it?
Yes. So where do beliefs come from? We go 2 steps behind. Where does beliefs come? Beliefs come from your memories, right? There are conscious and unconscious and subconscious. So let us put it into conscious and subconscious beliefs. Subconscious beliefs are which we are not even aware of, but we have made them. Most of our belief system is formed by the age of 7 subconsciously.
Okay.
Right? So when you say that as a child it's easy to make habits, as a child we make beliefs. Over a period of time we make those as habits. Now we have to, as when you are an adult, you have to break those habits. You have to again reprogram yourself. How does reprogramming happen? What if we were aware of everything consciously, everyone in this world would be happy, right? Why are people still struggling? Because 90% of what's happening in your life is governed by your subconscious mind. So your beliefs, so like you said, maybe this girl was suppressed a lot as a child or whatever it could be. She is not even aware of what that is. But for then we go deeper into the person's system, we relax them, we put them at a level where they can be completely relaxed.
They can say what they feel.
Yeah. And then when they are in that state, now we call it a state, our brain goes through 4 states, 4 primary, there are different states of brain, but our brain goes through primary 4 states. The first one is beta, when you and I are talking, when we are looking at everyone around us, when we are working in office, our brain waves are in beta, which means they are fast, you are able to process things, you are looking at things around you, you are doing good, your normal waking state. Let's go to a little deeper state than that. You are relaxed, you are closing your eyes, you are starting a meditation, or you just started with your yoga asana or your pranayama or whatever your mindfulness practice it, or you are journaling, you are writing, you are slightly relaxed, you are slowly moving into a little lower state which is called as the alpha state of brain. Your brain waves are slowed down. Usually the start of a meditation, when if you go for a yoga class or a meditation class, your teacher tells you, take a deep breath, slow down, close your eyes, you are getting into the alpha state. That's why after yoga classes we feel so good, because we are going deeper into those states. After a meditation session you feel so good. When you go deeper into the meditation, your brain waves are still slowing down. Now these waves are called as theta waves. Theta waves are still slower, and in the theta waves, now theta is, like we say in our field, it's a magical place to be, because that is where you get the aha moments, that is where a lot of healing happens. From alpha to theta is where you are relaxing, and theta is a little where you have gone a little deeper. So if you are meditating, and in meditation if you feel this, you are in theta. When
but
you
is it like the sleep state or?
No, so it is the sleep state, but it is the state where you dream, you are sleeping, you are dreaming.
Okay.
The deep sleep state is the 4th one, which is called as the delta state. Now on an average, when a person goes to sleep and when they go into deep sleep, that is where the delta state happens. Now delta is the state where our body starts its natural healing mechanism. So if you are not sleeping well, if you are not going into the deep, in delta there are no dreams, you are in the deepest, most relaxed state. Now after the whole EEG came up, people could actually see these brain waves, the brain waves, and all that study started. And when we talk about neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy or hypnosis, we actually see to it that when a client is always feeling restless, they are spending a lot of time in the beta state, their brain is not going enough into the deeper states.
So when we say conscious, subconscious mind,
yes.
so is beta your conscious mind and alpha your
Yes, so
subconscious
I will
mind.
tell you how it goes. Beta is where you are in the conscious state, so your conscious mind is fully active.
Okay.
In alpha, it is called as the gate of subconscious, because in alpha you are just beginning to enter your subconscious mind. Then you go to theta. Theta is where the magic happens. So we all have heard the story of Archimedes, who was looking for a solution. He sat in a bathtub and then he said, Eureka! And that's what happens with all of us. And there was in one of my sessions which I had taken for a corporate, you could keep a small notepad in the bathroom. And he said, Madam, are you serious? I said, yes, I am. And
no, even for me it's fun.
it's funny, but if you see people who are masters, they have started doing these techniques.
Really?
Yes. So a lot of people keep post-it notes and a pen in the bathroom, because that's where a lot of creative ideas come. And I'm sure a lot of people who are going to view us, they can try and they can experiment, but a lot of ideas come up when you are. So in theta is the gateway of the subconscious. You are just beginning to explore the subconscious. Next to that you go to the theta. At alpha you are starting, at theta you are going a little deeper. If you spend more time in theta, right, your creativity will peak, your productivity will get better, and theta is also the state where you can reprogram what we spoke about, neuroplasticity.
Okay.
So when you are talking to someone in beta, you can't tell a person that please change your behavior.
Change your behavior.
We can do that, because the logical reasoning comes up in beta. People who call themselves that I'm very logical and I'm very intellectual, it's amazing that you are intellectual, but if you can start operating in alpha and theta,
You will do wonders.
your productivity will peak high. And people have done that. There are experiments happening all over the world, because the core of all this information is even in our Upanishads and Vedas. Although now, because a lot of this information is scientifically backed and proved, that's why people have started believing it. Before that, people were not believing it, but this is an age-old information about the whole how the brain science works. So coming back to my client, we started putting her into deeper states. We started making her relaxed, go into deeper states of mind, and then from that space we started changing her beliefs. Her fears were in her subconscious mind, which she was not even aware of. At beta level, no matter what she did, she couldn't really work with them. But as we started slowing her down and putting her in alpha and theta, by slowing her down, I do not mean slowing her down always. When she was in a session with us, we asked her to relax, maybe lie on a chair and close her eyes, start deep breathing. And there's a process which we have been trained to do, and we started doing that on her. She started talking about a lot of things which were memories of her, because of which she was fearful. But a lot of things also were still hidden, which she was still not aware of. Now, the access consciousness, a modality which I work with, comes at a great rescue for a lot of people who are really not aware of what's really going on. And there is a process called bars, where the client lies down and we touch their heads and we release stuck beliefs.
Say for example, I'm someone who's feeling uneasy, and and it's impacting my life. Okay,
Yes.
this thing is somewhere stopping me from achieving what I want to do, and I know that I need to work on it.
Yes.
But say for example, I do not have much of money to really go for such sessions. What are the resources available with me
Yes.
to work on myself?
I would say start reading.
Okay. What should I read?
So start reading books which are about how to deal with these emotions. So, of course, if people see, we are, when we say you don't have the money to do it, we are again looking at Abraham Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy. If you're still at the survival level, mental health, it's something which you will not really look at. And that's the state of a lot of people outside. They are tremendously impacted by mental health concerns, but they're still living in the survival. So they cannot really go out and afford. And I tell such people, watch videos, listen to podcasts, read books. These are the first steps. But I always see that, this is a scarcity mentality which also over a period of time is changing. A lot of people are choosing, and the best way to get yourself healed is take support from someone who's an expert, because as a professional, people will, in Hindi I can say, आप थाली में सजा के रख के किसी को दोगे, because when I started my own journey, when I met my mentors, they guided me step by step and things were so easy
for you.
Right? Now when I guide my clients, I make it even easier, because 10-12 years ago we did not have much teachers and mentors in this field in India. There was a lot of, still this work was still getting ready for but now when people come to me or when people come to my colleagues, we put things out and give it to you. So
but is it like, sorry to cut you, but is it like India mein abhi, people are more open to the idea of taking,
yes,
going to a mental health expert?
The new generation is. The new generation is, maybe our generation too. There are two kinds of people. There are people who are actually seeking help and taking help. The generations previous to us may or may not choose. Like, this is just statistics, what I have clients around with me. But I see a lot of the millennials and the Gen Zs are, because we have understood somewhere that, okay, there is something going on within me which is not so pleasant, right? I need to change it. And there is a way out to change it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people who don't choose to take coaching sessions or to take counseling sessions or to work through these, somewhere do not believe that there is a way out. Why are people not choosing? Money is not the only concern. So for instance, I have someone who is a friend who and I were working out in the same gym. And then we just had a conversation, and then she said, I would really like to see you. Can I come and visit you? And she took an appointment and she came in. And just before we began, she said that, please don't tell this person. I was like, I will not even tell if your husband or your mother comes to me. I will not even say that you are a client or I will always say that you are a friend. Because that is exactly how we work at health level, because there is a lot of stigma about judgment. A lot of people would still say that, oh, I don't need your services because मेरे life में सब मेरे तो life में सब अच्छा चल रहा है. And I always say you need not, things need not go down south if you have to see me. You may just want to create more in your life. And I have clients who say that, okay, my life is good, but I want to create more. Can I see you for that? Manifestation, which is one of the manifestation coaching. In that, people actually come and they set their goals and objectives. But since we are talking about emotions and difficult emotions, so this client went through a lot of this to and fro conversations. We actually went back and looked at her childhood. Inner child healing is what we call. There is shadow work, inner child healing, all of that started. We worked with her through access consciousness tools, through bars. She went through this for about 6-7 months, and so this person is a totally different person now. So these little fears, this little anxious thoughts which she was continuously having, continuously panicking about little things, not being able to take a decision, not being able to make a choice because she was always fearful. And this had become, over a period of time, it had become her behavior, it had become a habit. Why do people make behaviors and habits? Because those are the basic thoughts which have been governing them.
Yeah.
You have to break that pattern.
And even at that time when they are doing that, I mean, whenever they started making it a habit, I think that was serving them, right? Because
yes, so every habit which we make is always, our subconscious is, there is some hidden reason why they are creating. So for instance, just deviating a topic a little bit, why do people have addictions like smoking and drinking? Because it gives them pleasure for one point of time, which they feel is what they need, but this is actually they don't want. So the intention is, many people say, I want to stop drinking, I want to stop smoking. So intention and behavior, why are they not same? That's where we say there is non-congruency. Why is there no congruency? Because at some point of time, somewhere subconsciously, they have associated that feeling with pleasure for a minute.
yeah.
Joy is a longer term. When we talk about happiness, joy is a state, but pleasure is something which happens for say a moment, right? So people eat sweets, people binge eat, people smoke, people drink. Everyone who is smoking knows that it's going to damage their lungs. Everyone who is eating a lot of sugar knows that it's going to cause a lot of harm to their body. But why are those patterns created? So these are patterns created. Behaviors are nothing but patterns created. There was one little thing which happened, and They thought that this will give me pleasure for a moment, and hence they started, and then it became a habit.
Redoing it, yeah.
So every time when a person creates a not so good, a negative habit, that too is giving them something in return because of which they are still stuck onto that. Now to change that, we have to break the pattern. There is something called as anchoring, which we do, where we actually walk a person through a process where we make that person break that habit.
Okay.
Right? So coming back to my client, over a period of time, all of these things died down because the habits changed. How did the habits change? The beliefs changed. There were anchors put in to break those toxic habits, and everywhere.
So what kind of anchors were put?
So we make the person, like I said, go into a deeper state, and then we use either sound, we use visuals, we ask them to visualize, we ask them to look at things in detail and create a new pattern. So this is how we create new neural patterns.
Okay.
A very common word which a lot of people use in today is visualization. What is visualization? You ask the person to visualize something, make it very, very much detailed as possible, and then that person sees that out, and that person creates a new pattern. Over a period of time, we also, as a part of our training, we give the people audios to listen to, which we tell them to listen to before they go to sleep. That's a very good time to program your subconscious mind. So we gave this girl something to listen for 21 days, 60 days, sometimes even 90 days we give. And then people slowly start seeing those changes, because consciously they cannot make those changes. But the changes are happening at a subconscious level.
Yeah, but then this is something that one has to experience, right?
One
because
has to
as per my
experience.
logical mind, it doesn't make any logic.
Yes, so there are theories backing this for people who want to know what it is. So there was a gentleman named Jose Silva who started the entire mind theory. Silva mind theory is an entire research on this, and people have seen that when they go into deeper states and when you reprogram your mind, you see the changes. I always tell my clients, make a small experiment. See, there are no side effects to it. Make a small experiment, work with it, see if it suits you. If not, we always say that if one thing doesn't suit the client, something else will definitely suit.
Yeah.
And in my experience over the last 8 years, I've seen that depending on the person's, their receptivity and their nature and their core skills, which we call as, so there are people, I'm not going much into details of that, but people are either visual or they are auditory or they are kinesthetic. So depending on the way they are, we give them therapies which help them to work through whatever limitations they are going through. So coming back to this client, with all of this work, over a period of time, and I always tell them that just seeing me and taking a 1 hour session is great, but I also tell people do the homework, because that is where the real magic happens. Go home and listen to those audios. You don't have to do anything. You just have to play those in your ears and listen to it, and sometimes you may even fall asleep, or maybe do little things like journaling, maybe little things.
But is it like, sorry to cut you, but is it like women are more receptive of these things as compared to men?
I would say my clients are 80% women, 20% men, but I feel that it's about a lot of, there are two things why men are not yet choosing it. One is of course the social stigma about I'm a man.
Men are stronger.
Men are stronger.
Of course.
Of course they have emotions, and I have seen that the men who are choosing these services are very much aware of what's happening within them. So the first one I said is society stigma. The second one is when we bring up little boys, as a culture, the little boys are told that you should not be emotional.
You shouldn't cry.
You shouldn't cry, which also makes them numb the emotions. And why? And when we look at disease as such.
But I mean, I have one example, live example, wherein, because I believe that one should be able to process their emotions. So like with my son, when he cries, I actually let him cry.
Which is a very beautiful thing.
What I do is I hug him,
and
I'm like, okay, cry. And then he'll cry for like 10-15 minutes, and then he's fine. And then he'll go and play.
And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. When we say sit with it, that is how. So, you see men crying only at funerals if their mother dies or if their father dies. because that is acceptable for men to cry at that point of time, but still many won't even cry because again it's a habit. You see everything is a thought, is a belief, is a habit. So we always operate in this cycle. Understanding emotions and processing emotions is not a Herculean task, or it's not rocket science. The problem is we were never trained to know all this, the entire cycle of how emotions go through, how do emotions come up, what are the thoughts, what are the beliefs, what are the patterns. And like I say,
I mean, if we say, for example, we do not process our emotions, we keep it in ourselves,
Yes.
what happens?
So that is exactly where the start of disease happens.
Is it?
And Louise Hay.
You mean mental disease or physical disease?
Initially at a mental level, later at a physical level. So there are theories. There is a research entirely about how emotions impact our body. One of the most amazing authors I have seen is Louise Hay, who's created an entire literature, entire work about how emotions have impacted our physical body. To go back to the story of Louise Hay, she was diagnosed with cancer at a very early age, and she was told that she will not live any longer. That lady lived till her 90s and she passed away.
What age was she diagnosed with cancer?
I think she was in her 20s, or I don't know the exact age, the 20s or 30s was the time where she was.
And she lived for another 50, 60
years. She lived for
years.
another 50, 60 years.
Wow.
So Louise Hay created an entire universe of how emotions impact our physical body too. In her book, You Can Heal Your Life, there is an entire directory about how every emotion creates an illness, and it has become a part of my work too. Her work is, because when I work with clients, I first ask them if people are having gut problems. I ask them, are you anxious all the time?
Okay.
Right?
So basically you are saying anxiety is if someone is very anxious, it is there in the gut.
It impacts their gut. So if people who have gut problems have been definitely anxious, either they are consciously aware of it, or they have suppressed it. There will be people who will be in denial, who will say that no, I am not anxious. But then there is so much of anxiety which is suppressed inside them, which is causing the gut issues. So I'll use a very simple language. When something terrible happens, people say that I can't digest that. Now do you see, the digestive system is digesting not just the food, but everything around. So they say that liver stores anger. So if a person is very angry and the anger is not processed, it gets stored in the liver. Because liver actually processes everything in our body, right? So anger gets stored in liver. Kidneys, they hold a lot, the fear, the whole aspect of fear. That's the reason when you're nervous and panic, you will rush to the bathroom because you're trying to empty yourself, because nervousness, right? So fear is with the kidneys. Very interesting. Grief is with the lungs. So lungs store a lot of grief. Why are people seeing a lot of respiratory problems now? Of course, I'm not denying the impact of environment, pollution, and so much going on in we are putting so much toxins out there. The quality of air is not good. I do not deny that, because I always say that my work is complementary and it is an additional work in addition to what the medical system works. And we all at this level, we would always say that our work is complementing what the medical world, we together are creating a more healthy world. So at no cost I am saying that there is environmental pollution. Of course there is environmental pollution. There is so much, the traffic has increased, the air is full and all of that. But at a core level, if the grief is not processed, it stays in the lungs. And people who have respiratory ailments is because...
And how sick can you get with that?
That's the start of the sickness, and sickness can go even till the person dies, because eventually every emotion which gets stored.
So I mean, you are saying you can have asthma, you can have like even lung cancer.
Absolutely, it will manifest in different people's bodies as different diseases.
Okay.
Some people might get asthma, some people might get COPD, some people might get lung cancer, depending on what the body is creating. But the root will always lie in grief, right? Because grief will impact the lungs. Now, I'll explain it in a way a layman would understand. When you are grieving, we are crying, We are feeling breathless after a point of time. That's exactly what grief does to us, right? If that can be how an immediate reaction is, imagine grief staying there, unprocessed, not talked about, just putting a lid on it, and it stays there, and it stays there, and it stays there. Imagine how much what it can do to you. So at the root, so I would say that if there are 10 factors impacting a disease, one of the key factors in those 10 factors, so say a person is smoker, and as we know, smoking damages the lungs, right? So then why do people who do not smoke to develop such illnesses, right? So environmental factors, habits, all of that forms a part of it. But in addition to that, so even when I talk to doctors, they say that yes, people who have similar conditions yet have different diseases. Why is that? Because everyone has a different emotional setup. Now this is something which was not looked into for a very long time, but fortunately now with we hear about epigenetics and we hear about so much things which are going on, and now we've slowly started understanding that at the root of everything there is an emotion. So I would say that emotion, habits, behaviors, thoughts, environments, everything will create that disease. So a virus, for example, we know that if you have cold and cough, if there are 10 people who are having cold and cough, you will catch a cold, right? But still, why some people do and why some people not? Science says immunity. But in addition to that, cold and cough is always having constant irritability with something. When you're constantly irritated with something, you will keep sneezing. So irritation, need to control, that will cause a lot of sneezing. So I recently met someone who said that one after the other, something has been happening and I'm falling sick, and it's not that she's falling sick only because of the immunity, and although that's a factor, but in addition to that, I asked her, how are you feeling? And she says that I don't feel like going to work. Okay, and then she doesn't feel like going to work, so her body makes sure that she falls sick so that she sits at home, she doesn't go to work. And then I say, okay, what will make you go to work?
Yeah, but I think that happens with burnout as well, because I myself have experienced it.
Of course.
So for a very long period of time, I was like very, very stressed about work, and like years.
Again stress. Now stress is impacting you, burnout, physical burnout, emotional burnout, mental burnout. Burnout is not just physical. Burnout is also emotional and mental. So you see, when you say burnout, you are also tired of the thinking. You are tired of having constant low and high emotions. Burnout is not just physical, because we humans are complex. We have a set of emotions which are going on. So when we say you are burnt out, you are also looking at your emotions and your mind, the thoughts which you are having, and it's natural that you will fall sick after that. But when we earlier looked at this thing, we would say that, oh, I'm tired because I'm physically fatigued. But why is no one talking about the emotional burnout? In COVID, when we all were working from homes, we were not physically doing a lot of things, but people were still emotionally burnt out. And I think that was the time where this whole wave of awakening came up, where people started understanding that we have to manage emotions. So when I say I am an emotional coach, when people come to me, they say that this is what is going on in my life. I tell them, please go and see your GP, make sure that you take the right medicines. What I will help you is, I will help you to process the emotions which is causing this disease. And then they see that the medicines start helping them faster. So because I'm also an alternative energy medicine practitioner, which because of which I work with people on their emotions and on all of that. In energy science, we also talk about something called as aura, or in Sanskrit it is called as the Sukshma Sharir, or the energy body. Now, whether it is Ayurveda or whether it is homeopathy, whether it is the Chinese medicine, all of these medicinal modalities take into consideration the entire energy around the Sukshma Sharir. And what I just spoke about grief in the lungs.
Sukshma Sharir is basically the
Sukshma
aura.
Sharir is your aura and your energy body, which is surrounding your physical body. And this is the layer of where your emotions are stored. So how, if you are constantly living in sadness, grief, sorrow, your emotional body will, that's why when we see someone, we see, oh, that person looks very sad. Why does that person look sad? Because their emotional body is very weak. Why, when you see a person who is vibrant, who seems happy, who looks like a happy personality, their emotional body is full of good emotions. The higher emotions, we spoke about the emotions and the
But
scale.
I mean, again, coming back to emotions, when you were talking about different ranges of emotion, I mean, isn't it necessary that, we actually go through the bad emotions to experience good
Of course.
emotions?
So when I say bad emotions and good, that's the reason I say low emotions and high emotions.
Yeah.
Because when we say that you don't go through them, you are numbing them. We need to be aware of them, but we need to process. My stress here lies on the fact that process them, deal with them, know the root cause of it, and once you have done that all inner work, you will experience more joy than someone who has not dealt with it. It's very simple. When people deal with death of a loved one, you have to process those emotions. Now people say that, oh, it's been 10 years I lost someone and I've never felt happy since then. So we all should be aware that yes, we will naturally go through grief, or even when you say have a separation or a breakup, we will naturally go through grief.
So I mean, when the grief happens, is it like it is same for everyone?
It's different for everyone, but the grief is of course grief. So the core emotion is grief. Everyone will have a different way of dealing with it. But having said that, do not numb or suppress it. Do not deny it. Or do not just stay stuck in the grief for like 10 years living in
There's
grief.
something
is not a
called cycle of grief, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's one of the best things I've heard about, because when I talk to people, I ask them, have you dealt with the grief? Most people will stay at the denial stage and they will say, I don't want to talk about it.
So
Right?
what are the stages of grief?
So first is of course the denial, where you are denying that something is happening. You will say that nahi hai, aise kuch nahi hai. Right? So denial is the first one. After denial comes anger.
Okay.
You are angry. You are trying to. You feel that anger at that point of time, which is a very. So these all are very natural parts of grief, and we need to go through all of them. Then you are negotiating. You are controlling. You are trying to see what you can do, whether you can negotiate. After that comes what we call as depression. Now depression is where the person is all the time feeling hopeless, helpless. In our scriptures, there is a very beautiful term called Smashan Vairagya. And Smashan Vairagya is when a person loses a loved one and they feel that life is worthless. Mujhe kuch nahi karna. I don't want to go to office. I don't want to work. This all is because if my loved one is not with me, what should I do? There is no meaning to this, right? So, and it's very natural part of the whole cycle of grief. So, Vairagya, what is Vairagya? Vairagya is where you are leaving everything and you are just going as you are becoming a sannyasi. Basically, Vairagya is where you are doing tyag of everything.
Correct.
But Smashan Vairagya is a temporary state where you feel that everything is worthless, everything is. I don't feel that I don't need to go to work or earn money, because you are constantly in the state of so much feeling hopeless about everything.
But isn't that also my love towards that?
Of course. So
dead.
Grief is love. I always say grief is a form of love, that you cannot express that love. But when you deny and suppress that feelings, that's where the problem happens. So first we go to denial. Then after denial, the next step is anger. Then you are negotiating, controlling, going through the control.
Then we negotiate with God as well. ऐसा क्यों किया? हमें ले जाते.
And many people stay in that state. So some people stay in the denial state. Some people stay in the anger state forever. I know people who have lost people 20, 30 years ago. They are still in the anger state. There is so much suppressed anger. That I don't believe in God. I don't go to temples. आपके temples में जाने से कुछ नहीं होना. You have to deal with that anger. And people also take pride in saying that I've not gotten over death of someone, because they believe that if they are not gotten over death of someone,
then you are proving your love.
They are proving their love.
Yeah.
And if you have dealt with it, you don't love the person, अरे इसको तो कुछ पड़ी नहीं. It's a very common judgment which happens. But you know, then some people are stuck at anger, some people are stuck at the negotiation stage. Unfortunately, many are stuck at the depression stage. And the last stage and the most important one is the acceptance, because when you are in the acceptance, that is where you will understand that you have to. So there are different reasons. There are spiritual reasons that you have to respect the soul's journey. The body perishes, the soul stays forever. These are, you know, the spiritual ways of looking at it. Then of course there is knowing that there is time. If someone dies, it's their time. So
and also I think dying is a very natural process, right?
It's a natural process.
It is going to happen with all of us. It's not like it happened with only someone.
Absolutely. And yes, I understand sometimes when people see untimely death of people who are younger, it can be even more difficult, and it's easier said than done, right? But having said that, no matter what it is, any kind of grief, whether it is death of a loved one, whether it is a breakup, a separation or a divorce, whether it is, there is also grief when you fight with people and you don't talk to them for forever.
Now I can make sense. मतलब अभी grief में breakup कहा ना आपने, so I mean it's like वो जो दीवाने हो जाते हैं ना बिल्कुल ही
they are in the denial.
हाँ.
So they are in the दीवाने हो जाते are in denial. And then they are angry, then they are the ones जो they get in the anger. Then there are people who are, you know, still negotiating, trying to make things work. And then a lot of people stay in depression. I think a lot of people, when people are in depression, that is where, like I always say, the journey of life begins. If you make choices, if you choose a good mentor, a good coach, they can actually help you to
come out of it.
And that's where the importance of working with.
You know what? One very good thing I heard about depression, and I think that has made a big impact on me, is like you cannot come out of depression by logic.
Absolutely.
So because I mean, people who are depressed, they're very logical people.
Yes.
Okay, they are looking life as it is. Okay, they are not thinking more or less of it. They're like, okay, life is this, it is it.
Yes.
But they're so logical that they're not able to come out of it. So they are in circles.
Yes, so I will put it again with our brainwaves theory. When you are in logic, you're always living in the beta and you're not able to relax. So people who are logical are living more in beta. They are not going to alpha theta unless they are going to sleep. Some of them may not be sleeping well too. So their brainwaves are not actually going deeper for them to get insights of the world. See, if I connect a lot of depression to is where people are always getting in the state where they are trying to decode everything logically.
Correct.
Now, when you, like looking back at our theory of brainwaves, when you relax the person and when you take them to alpha and theta, and where they start seeing the we call it a breakthrough, right? One of the workshops I do is breakthrough, because we actually tell people to to make sure that they relax enough so that they start seeing possibilities. Now, access consciousness, we ask the person to use the tools or to receive access consciousness bars in such a manner that they are willing to see beyond the stuck realities and are willing to see the possibilities. But that happens only when the brainwaves slow down.
Okay.
When the person goes into alpha and theta, that's why people who meditate live a better quality life, because they are, see, I'm using the science and the Eastern energy science and the Western science of brain and mind.
No, but now meditation is something which is worldly accepted.
Absolutely.
Everyone accepts it. And I think meditation, if you talk about, is different, but when you experience it, because I think meditation is something you need to experience. So I've been meditating.
Half people who do not believe in meditation have never experienced a meditation.
Exactly.
Half the people who do not believe in using alternative therapies have never experienced them. So I always say that experience it and then do it. And like you said, people who are logical are depressed. So to get out of the depression, we can't explain them in logic.
Correct.
For that, we have to make sure that they start getting into that zone. So I always say that just by watching a video or just by, of course, watching videos, reading books, podcasts, it's great to start your journey. But at some point, you need a mentor who will guide you, because everything is personalized. There is no, I can't give one generic statement for everyone, right? Every person is different.
And also I think when you have a mentor, it helps because, you know, no matter how many books you've read, you still have some doubts, right?
Absolutely.
It's like when you have a mentor, they kind of assure you and they tell you, okay, you know, this is what
it's
it
what
needs
we call as hand holding and holding space. And also there is a step-by-step process to all of this. We have been trained to take a step-by-step, walk the client through a step-by-step process. It's just like when my electricity, something is wrong with my electricity, I don't open the circuit box and see, I call an electrician. When my plumbing is choked, I call a plumber. And when I am sick and I am having, say, stomach infection, I go and see a doctor. Of course, we are looking at the emotions too, but every person has their own job, and every job has their own key skills, right? If there is something wrong with my computer, I call my computer engineer. To file my tax returns, I talk to my CAI.
Yeah.
So I think everything you can't, DIY is good for some things but not good for everything. So I think people who are going through emotional upheavals seek support. And we spoke a little bit about the stigma of people feeling judged, but I think the stigma is slowly going. And also confidentiality.
But then if you are emotional, okay, or you are someone who understands your emotion, expresses it, I mean, a lot of people also say you are kind of, you appear stupid, or they call you stupid. You're not stupid, but they call you stupid because, you're vulnerable in a way. You are gullible in a way in front of them. So, I mean, is it the reality that if you are emotional?
See, your point of view creates your reality. Someone might judge you at something, but that will not be your reality. We see celebrities, we see leaders, we see people, they are judged and perceived as left, right, center.
Yeah.
And everyone will have their opinion. I think when you put yourself out anywhere, people will judge you. And everyone will have a different perspective of you. But we do not let their perceptions make us our reality, right? Because if you are a person who expresses emotions, who knows what their emotions look like, and if there are people who are laughing at them, and if those people are they're not even a part of your story, how does it matter? So you will always get perceived, judged, misunderstood, and it's okay. Because on the journey of our life, we need to know who we are. I also know people who say that, no, my best friend knows me the best, or my parents know me the best, or my husband or my wife know me the best. I think you have to know yourself the best. Atmagyan is a very powerful Sanskrit word and used a lot in even Advaita Vedanta teachings. I feel you have to know yourself well. You have to know, and this is what we call as what the journey is. The journey is about rediscovering you, who you truly are. What suits me? I know if I am a person who is sensitive, I will avoid things which will make me go deeper into something which is not good. So you have to know. You have to know what to avoid, how to deal with, and how to work with. So basically, you need to know what all of this is. So a person who is, now there is a difference. How do you define an emotional person? I know people who will just cry and they will say, I'm emotional. Are they emotional, or have they emotionally misunderstood themselves?
Yeah, and are they emotionally regulated? Because I mean,
So
crying all the...
Yes. So when we are talking about emotional, we are not talking about just emotional regulation and dysregulation, because I could cry and I could still be emotionally highly regulated, and I could be completely dysregulated and I will still not cry. There are those type of people too. There are some people who say that I don't cry, but they are highly dysregulated emotionally. There is a lot going on inside their world, which again they are in the numbing, suppressing category, where they don't know how to even regulate and how to even express. On the other hand, if I am someone who has been constantly working on myself, I have learned how to regulate myself, and there are times I cry, I do cry, and I honor that. There are times where I feel the emotions in that way. There are times I may even not know how to deal with something, but then I sit with it. But this has happened because over a period of time, and so we are looking at...
I think sitting with it is very,
very important.
powerful.
Yes.
Yeah, because I was watching one of the podcasts wherein the guest of the podcast, he had gone for Vipassana, and he was telling his journey of Vipassana, which was absolutely beautiful. What he said was that when he went for Vipassana, and usually it's like 7 to 10 day course. I have not done it. I want to do it.
I would love to do
so
that. So
probably next year, let's see.
Yes.
I really want to do it. But he said that for the first 2 days, it was normal, because Vipassana, you typically are not talking to anyone, right? You're just, you in the morning you have some meditation, and then you are left on your own. You're not speaking to anyone at all, and you have like sattvic food.
Yeah.
So first 2 days he was absolutely fine. Third day is like I started feeling very, very uneasy.
Yes.
And it was like I started for some reason I started thinking about my sister, and he was like, when I think about logically, I and my sister, we have very good relationship, and there's nothing like I need to tell her. But third day something happened, and I was constantly thinking about her. And then I was like, okay, fine, let it be. But by the end of the day, he was like, I was not at all okay.
Right.
It felt like probably I'll die.
Right.
It was more like a panic attack that that guy was getting. And then he was like, I went to my guru. I was like, sorry, I think I need to be hospitalized. I cannot be here. And the guru was like, just stay for one more day. If you still don't feel okay, we will send you to the hospital. You can leave, it's fine. But just one day, stay. And then he was like, next day, suddenly there was a calm.
Beautiful.
And what had happened was that all his pent up emotions that he had, it was coming up. Because now he had this space wherein those emotions can come up. Nobody was repressing it. Like even, for example, I talk about myself. As soon as I have an uncomfortable feeling, first thing is reels. I'll start watching reels. And the second moment and you just move out of it, because you stop thinking about what you were feeling, and suddenly you are in your own zone looking at things. So, at that point with that person, it was more like he had a lot of space now wherein those emotions can come up, and they started coming up. And when all of them, they came up, he was feeling very worked up. And after that, it was a calm. And he was like, after that, the kind of clarity I had about what I want to do was amazing. It was like all the brain fog that I had, it just went away. And this is something that, of course, not to the Vipassana level, but smaller levels, I have tried with myself as well, that whenever I have a lot of anxiety, so what happens with me is when I get up the next day, I'm feeling very negative. It's like a lot of stress, a lot of uneasy feeling. So earlier I used to start, looking at social media and stuff. But for last couple of months, what I have started doing is I actually get up, I sit with myself, and I'm just sitting. Okay,
That's
I let that thing come up.
Yes.
And there are times I've cried as well. But after half an hour, 1 hour, everything is fine.
Absolutely.
And I feel much better about myself.
So a lot of people even cry in yoga classes, in massage sessions, in access bars when they come for access bars. Or I even know clients who, when they came to see me for the first time and they sat in the chair and I asked them, so how are you? And they break down. So a lot of times the emotions which are suppressed, when you are in a safe space, you feel at ease to express them. You also feel you are being taken care of, so sometimes that happens. And movement is another amazing way of releasing pent up emotion. That's why we all love doing yoga, right? Because when we move, the emotions move with us. There are energy bodies and energy vortexes in our Sukshma Sharir which are called as chakras, which are also vortices where a lot of things are stored and stuck. So the East, whether it is our ancient sciences, whether it is Japan where Reiki is practiced, I am a practitioner and master teacher and grandmaster, or whether it is the Chinese medicine, they all work with the energy body, they work through your chakras. And a lot of stuck energies which stays in the chakras can be balanced. Whatever does not serve you any longer can be released, and whatever you wish to attract can be attracted. And this all process is what we call as chakra balancing. And every chakra governs something. For instance, the Mooladhara, or the lowest chakra, is the chakra of material things and material stuff. So your wealth and money, if you have a lot of money issues, wealth issues going on, there are some blockages energetically in your Mooladhara chakra. It will also manifest in the physical body as issues with your your reproductive system, with your excretory system, and it might also create problems with your bones, with your physical body, with your feet. So Mooladhara chakra, the basic or the root chakra as they call it in English, is where you can deal with. So a person, we always see a pattern. A person says that, oh, they are having money problems. At the same time, they are also having problems with feet and with their bones. And they are also having problems with probably their excretory system, or many times people who have problems with kidneys too have Mooladhara. So Mooladhara is impacted. So, we relate all of this and we see that as a holistic case where why is this happening, and most of the times when a chakra is impacted, out of 5 there are 4 symptoms which are very dominant, right? Similarly, the Anahata chakra, which is the heart energy center. Now, because we spoke about grief, I think when we work with the heart center, a lot of people, they are incapable of giving and receiving love. Why are relationships falling apart? Because people cannot have emotional intimacy with each other. And intimacy is not just physical. In fact, intimacy is absolutely emotional. And in Access Consciousness, we talk about the 5 elements of intimacy. Vulnerability is a very important one, which most people lack today. Then, of course, there is allowance. Am I being in allowance of you as a person, as my spouse or as a partner? Do I have gratitude for someone? Right? Do I have trust for someone? So gratitude, trust, honor, allowance and vulnerability are the 5 elements of intimacy. And if your heart chakra or your energy center is blocked, you will not be able to give and receive all of this, and hence you will have difficulty in the relationships. Difficulty in the relationships, there is again a misunderstanding about it. If you have 4 or 5 people in your life who support you, who unconditionally stand with you, who are there with you, and you can have all these 5 elements, I will say you are rich in terms of relationships. As compared to someone who has 100 people around them, but they have absolutely, the 5 elements of intimacy are not with any of them, then I would say that the person is very bad.
That takes me to a very good, because when you say your relationships or quality of relationship depends on 5 people around you, and if they are, you have good relationships with them, then you are very, lucky in a way. But a lot of people, they are surrounded with people who do not support them.
Right.
Again, I mean, narcissism is a big
It's
topic in itself. So
yeah, but some other time for that.
Exactly. But you are surrounded with people who do not understand or respect you as a person, and your life, of course, is a big
reflection
shit
of the people
in a way.
you.
What do you do in such a case?
I would say earn your people, choose your people. These both things are equally important. So let's talk about earn later because it's a very deep concept. Again, I will talk about inner work. I always say that when you do a lot of inner work on yourself, you will also attract the people who are good for you. Because the people who interact with, what are the kind of people you attract in your life? And by attract, I mean the law of attraction. Subconsciously, every person who has come in your life is at some level you have attracted them, either because of the things you like or the things you dislike. So when you do the inner work, you earn the people who are good for you. Again, I'll talk about that in a bit, but I'll talk about the first thing, which is choose. So choosing the people who are good for your mental health is very important. Now people will say, but what if you don't have a choice?
Exactly.
Right? Now, you always have a choice, and how as difficult as this sentence might seem, we have to make choices which are good for us, right? Now, sometimes people are in, like in COVID, many people say that they were in really toxic marriages, or with a man or a woman who was really not good for their mental health, and how do they make a choice in that case? So I think I'm coming back to knowing yourself and doing your inner work so that you know what are the true choices which you need to make.
But
so,
I mean, you said that people realized during COVID that probably, they are not with best of people.
Yes.
And also, I mean, even otherwise, if I am, say for example, surrounded with people who are not supportive of me, or who are toxic, for example.
Yes.
It's not easy to leave people, right?
Absolutely. But you have to always, we always say that, listen to them. But don't be impacted by their choices, their decisions.
But they can be my family members, right? They can be my mother, father, my sister, brother.
So you have to know, and that brings me to the concept of boundaries. Where are you? You can always be with your family, but you should know what to and what not to choose from what. Because see, everyone is operating from their own map. Everyone is operating from their own point of view. They may not be wrong, but for instance, if recently a person whom I know she had to quit her job to start something which she really loves. None of the people around her were supporting her, other than just her husband. And then she said that, she played a very smart thing. She said that my parents-in-laws, my family, they will not support me. So she was
quiet about it.
She did not tell anyone about it, because people will put their fears in her head. This will.
Exactly.
I'm sure when every person they choose something, they have already chosen things because they have taken those steps. So she did not discuss things with her, of course, because they don't live in the same house. So she could do that. But I know a lot of people who still manage to make choices by doing things in such a way that they do not allow. So you do not have to disclose everything to everyone. You can, and it's not, it's not necessary that you disclose everything to everyone and tell everyone about what's happening in your life. And you need not explain your choices to everyone.
But then there's some people who, right, really get on to you. They are, I mean, उनको बस तुम्हारी लाइफ में घुसना है, कैसे भी घुसना है.
Boundaries.
And how do you set boundaries?
By being assertive, by being kind, by telling what you want. Being assertive, not fighting with them.
But it's not so easy, right?
Yes,
because say for example,
practice.
it's my...
So again, it's a behavior, and it's a pattern which we have to create. See, boundaries, there is so much being spoken about boundaries. Now, but it's a pattern. You cannot have boundaries until you neurologically change your thoughts, beliefs, emotions in such a manner that you will be at ease with setting boundaries. See, it took me about 8-9 years to understand boundaries and actually to put boundaries, and I'm not still fully there. I'm still somewhere in the process.
No, but you are also considered rude, right? I mean, say for example, I want to set a boundary with someone, okay? I don't like certain behavior of someone, right? If I call it on their face, if I tell them, sorry, I do not like this.
Absolutely.
First of all, it's not easy.
Yes.
Because myself,
definitely not easy.
Yeah, for myself, it's like, there's a fear that what this person is going to think about me. Secondly, okay, if I cross that stage, there is a lot of fear in actually saying that thing, because the relationship might suffer. Right? And the third is the actual reaction of the person when you say that.
Right. So my experience has been people who really honor, support you. Again, we go back to the 5 elements. Initially it may be difficult, but they will still honor your boundaries. Because the people who do not like you having boundaries are the people who really want to exploit you at some level. But people who are really supportive, like even to that extent, putting boundaries with your own parents, at some point of time, they will be in allowance of that. It might be very difficult because see, you're breaking a pattern. All these years you had no boundaries, and now all of a sudden you have boundaries. And I know there are so many people who will misunderstand you, but they are not your people. So I read a beautiful quote that day, that with boundaries you are not losing friends and family, you are losing gaslighters, you are using narcissists, you are losing people who are they are emotionally draining you, they are energy vampires, and they are someone who are only interested in their own good, and they do not want to really see you happy and good. Someone who really wants to see you happy and healthy, and they want to see you prosper, they will have no problem with your boundaries. Trust me on this. And this is my experience, because that was my first question.
But then I mean, when I set boundaries with such people, I mean, I feel bad as well because of their reaction, right? Because most of the people would be like, excuse me, what are you saying? This never happened, right? And when this happens, you are yourself, I mean, you're like, okay, मैंने कुछ गलत किया है, मेरे को ये
That's a
नहीं
cycle.
बोलना चाहिए था.
And again, so when we are starting any new habit, imagine you're waking up every day at 8 o'clock in the morning. You start waking up at 5:30 in the morning. Initially, the few days will be very difficult for you. If you're someone who's been having dinner every day at 9 p.m. and you decided to have dinner at 6:30 p.m. in the evening, you are going to get hunger pangs in the evening, right? So any habit when we change, and that's where the power of, I talk about anchoring and I talk about use of neuro-linguistic programming, the power of going into your brain states and getting into the alpha and theta, access consciousness tools, all of these are the tools which will help you set the boundaries. So when I first realized that I had negative boundaries, I would say. I would allow anyone and everyone to kuch bhi bolo, kuch bhi karo, and that was impacting me because everything I did had judgment. Everything I had, I thought about had another opinion coming to me, and there was so much noise that I was not understanding that what I truly wanted. But as I started, whether it was through meditations, whether it was going into alpha and theta, whether it was getting my access bars run, or like when you get trained to be a therapist, you also go through a lot of training yourself. So sitting with my trainers, understanding, sitting with my mentors. Over a period of time, I came from a level of my first level was, I know I have boundaries. I know I need to have, I know that I have no boundaries. I need to have boundaries. I have no clue about how to go there. That was the start of it.
Yeah.
The next was, okay, now I know how to put boundaries, but I'm going back to the guilt when I have boundaries.
Correct.
And I do that even I have, like last week I said no to someone, and I went back in the guilt. It was some professional, something which the person spoke about, but I had a little bit of guilt, and then I realized that a very natural guilt which happens to you after you set a boundary. So that's the next stage. And I call it the guilt trap in the current research I'm doing and the book I'm writing on. I've written about the guilt trap. So what is a guilt trap? Guilt trap will keep you dragging back to a space where you will have no boundaries. And you will keep going back in circles, and you have to break that loop. So to break that loop, now why do we go into loops? Because it's a habit. So you have to consciously start making new choices. You have to train your subconscious mind. So whether I listen to my own tape, which I create with the step-by-step process in which you can train your subconscious mind, I listen to those tapes, I go into there, and then I say, okay, I have to now put the boundary here. That's the next step.
I think it's okay to say no.
Absolutely. That's the first thing which you should be aware of, that it's okay to say no. It's also okay to upset people at some level. You are not being selfish, because the whole concept of we don't want to be selfish makes us doormats. It's a doormat is a behavior which has been glorified. I myself was a people pleaser for the longest time, and I suffered. I used to feel, if I would feel that if I would have boundaries, I will have no friends left. But the truth was...
No, but that's a normal feeling,
that's
right?
a normal feeling.
Because if you set boundaries, you are saying no to some people, and these people can be, like I said, very close to you. So,
but like I said, always remember, you are always letting go of gaslighters, narcissists, people who do not see you prosper, people who are energy vampires. You meet someone, and typically when you meet a friend, you should feel energized. Like the way you and I always have been, that we always meet each other, we talk and we feel energized. But if after meeting a friend you are feeling drained, there is something wrong in that friendship.
But then मैं अकेले नहीं रह जाऊंगी अगर मैंने सब लोगों को बोल दिया कि I have my boundaries.
Yes, so
don't.
So Seenam, I had the same thought too when I started, and I asked the same question to my mentor, and she said, see, start, experiment, and tell me what are your results. And 8 years down the line, I have a very strong circle of people around me who are supportive, who honor me, who respect me. All the, and 5 elements of intimacy is not just for husband, wife or spouses. It's also for the people you work with. If I'm going to work with the person who is doing my bookings and my client manager, we have that if we have that kind of rapport where we connect to each other and we honor each other, we have boundaries, that makes us a very good team to work with, right? So I asked the same question to my teacher. 8 years down the line, whether it is friends, whether it is family, whether it is people whom I work with, whether it is friends like you, who we all have been knowing each other for long, I have the good quality people in my life. And you can always have co-workers, you can always have acquaintances, you can always have neighbors. Everyone is not your friend. So know who are your friends, know who are your acquaintances, know who you give right to talk about and advise about your life, and keep your boundaries high. You will live a very
So basically
quality
you're
life.
saying it's okay to let go of
Some
people who are not serving you,
Absolutely.
and then once you let go of them, you
And
have
that's the
space
theory,
in your life,
absolutely,
and you
to
attract
the people. And that's the theory of a good mental health, a person who has sound mental health. So like we say, don't eat junk food, don't smoke, don't have alcohol, don't get into substance abuse. These are bad for your body.
don't have wicked people
Don't
around
have
you.
wicked people around you. That is like the junk
Yeah.
food. They are like the MSG of humans. They
Yeah.
are like the sugar. They are like the cigarette, and they are like the alcohol. So it's like a codependency, because we feel we need those people, but the moment you understand you really don't need those people, those relationships. And I always say that, what if I always ask a question, that what will it be for me to have people who honor and support me, who are a contribution to my life, and I am a contribution to theirs,
their life,
right?
yeah.
Because eventually it's about we contributing and honoring each other, we contributing to each other, and contribution could be in terms of wisdom, in terms of so I recently met a friend after 2 years, and I just felt that where we just started, where we left 2 years ago from, and she is also into mental health and all of that. So we were speaking about things, and everything what we spoke, we both were learning from each other, we both were sharing with each other, and it was such a joyful conversation. Imagine you having people around you who are just like that.
That's actually my wish, that one day we have people who respect each other, who respect each other's boundary, who are okay with each other's boundary, and they realize that for you to be happy, you do not need to cross someone's boundary.
Absolutely. And consciously, I always say, what is consciousness? Consciousness is where you are aware of what's going around you. You do not have a judgment about something. So, I know there are people who are not good for me. Do I keep talking about how bad they are? No, then I'm going in the wrong zone. I know there are some people who are not good for my physical and mental health, my emotional health. I just let them go, and I just leave them there. They can exist, and probably they are not good for me, but they could be good for some people around them with whom they interact, because they could be on the same frequency level. And there are, so when I'm having, so like I always say, decluttering. What is decluttering? I make sure that in my wardrobe, whatever doesn't fit me anymore, whatever is old, whatever I don't wear it, I donate it, or I throw it, or I discard it, or I give it away, right? And then I create more space in my wardrobe so that I can buy new clothes, so that I can buy the new things in my life. Similarly, this is decluttering of relationships, this is decluttering of friendships. I just do not promote or honor at any times people who stay with people who are not good for their mental health, no matter whatever is the reason. And a lot of women, I tell them, and I will not just say about women, because I know a lot of men who too are with toxic wife, or a lot of
toxic
women.
Femininity has become a thing.
So there is a lot of it's not about men or women, although I have a lot of women clients. But in relationships too, if your partner is toxic, you have to work through it. You have to speak about what is going on. But at some point of time, if you think things are not working out, it's not good to be together. And that's not just about couples, that's also about people who work together. A lot of times we also say that
How is it about jobs?
Oh,
because I need
something.
money, I need to work, right?
And that's why I tell women that get independent. Find something which will, also look at investment options, get financially independent. And even I tell this to both men and women, you have to start getting independent without being dependent on someone. Yes, having support is great. When you are all by yourself, at the same time you have a partner who supports, isn't that a wonderful space to be? Right? Isn't that a great space to be? And that's the world we are creating for the future. Awareness through these podcasts. What are we trying to tell people? That again, coming back to choose your people.
But
and
then,
own your people.
the question that I was about to ask you was more on, if I'm working somewhere, right? And it's a very toxic environment, but I still need to continue because I need money.
You need the money.
Yeah, so I mean, how do I set my
And
boundaries in such a...
this is the most common case which I get in my day-to-day work, because they need the money but the environment is toxic. So I tell them 2-3 things. First, start your inner journey, because a lot of what's happening outside is going on inside. If you're attracting toxic people, it's because something needs to be changed. But of course, that's a long-term process, and people work with me for about 5-6 months. When I say work with me, in a client-coach relationship, and they work with those, whatever those things are causing, and we deal with that. But at the same time, I also tell them that practical steps bhi lena bahut zaruri hai. So make sure you start looking for a job, so that not all places are going to be toxic, right? So you can start looking for another job. Sometimes people also start a side hustle which helps them earn, which even if they start with, I know someone who started with as low as 3,000-4,000 per month in a side hustle, and then started making it slowly, like moonlighting is something which I think a lot of people are doing currently. And they are doing it because they are in, they would like to do something else. They are in maybe wrong jobs. They are doing it for the money to pay the EMI. So I tell people, okay, just don't quit. The job is not the solution to everything. Start looking for another job. Start doing the inner work. Also, slowly I see that when people change their neural patterns, when their thought patterns, their belief patterns change. See, why do people have so much stuff going on in the emotional system? Is because they have bad memories. Now the bad memories have created an energetic blueprint. They are expecting the same.
And also I think it's about not having enough, right? I don't have enough people in life. I don't have enough opportunities.
The scarcity
mentality. Yeah.
And this is where all these techniques come into picture, because we tell our clients, start looking at world from a new picture, from a place of possibilities, from a place of abundance, and not from scarcity. Scarcity is a mentality. Competition and jealousy also happens because of scarcity. If my colleague is succeeding, that means I am not succeeding, and I'm jealous of that. But if, like I always say, we are so many coaches operating in this industry where I am working, and I know people who, they are not my clients, they choose some other coaches. Now does that upset me? Technically it is supposed to upset me, right?
Correct.
But I always feel that there is enough. And because I also train coaches to be coaches, so I always say that if I am catering to 100 people in say a month, if I'm making a team of 6 coaches, there will be 600 lives which will be impacted. And I'm not saying that 100 will be divided by 6. I'm saying I will still have the 100, because the people who will choose my services will choose my services.
Correct.
They are at the same frequency level. They are ready to receive. It's like the algorithm of the universe. It's like how Amazon you place an order and you get it. Someone places an order that, please, I want to get out of this thinking, and I am putting a request out in the universe. Send me clients. I always say, send me clients who really want to see breakthroughs in their life, who are ready to make those choices, who will stay consistent on this path. I always say that these are the people, and who are ready to invest that much time, that much energy, and that much money to make, because people who are ready to invest that will be committed at another level.
Correct.
So I will look at it as, okay, if they are choosing another coach, their frequency matches with that coach.
And once a very good friend of mine, he told me, so I was stuck with one very toxic person.
Right.
At work, and every time I used to talk to him, it was about the same person again and again and again. And he told me that you need to realize there are 6 billion people in this world. That one person is not even 0.0001% of the entire population. Right?
We also make people significant sometimes because of, so I'm not going to the karma and why we make people significant and why do meet, because that will be again a separate story, and I think in this much time there is so much to share. So a lot of times we make people significant. We give them significance. We create what we call as form, structure and significance about something. And the person also, now usually the people who trigger us the most are on the spiritual journey our biggest teachers. Because they will make us realize what is it that I would like to change. They take us to the path of growth. Each one of us who's been on this journey, we have met some person who has triggered a wave of awakening among us. And I look back and I thank all my toxic teachers, all my toxic ex-bosses, all the toxic people around me who have pushed me, because they have made me who I am today. But of course, I have to make different choices. I can't just stay stuck,
exactly.
Right?
You can't get stuck with them.
You can't get stuck and say that, this is like Ashwini said that you will meet such people.
Yeah,
and
because
you
I
have to
think
handle
most of us, we actually get stuck with this toxic
So
person.
you have to make new choices.
Yeah.
You have to change your thought process. You have to go through a process where you have to understand that what is this person triggering in me? This person is making me feel helpless. This person is making me feel hopeless. What is this person triggering in me? And then we work with those emotions. Every session is different, Seenam, and every client, even the same situation, there are two clients coming with the same situation, still they will have a different journey. Because we all are so complex. There is so much plethora of emotions going around in our, in our energy, in our. There are so many thoughts going on in our brain. So with these tools, so again, coming back to what neuroplasticity is, we rewire our brain. Whether it is for boundaries, we have to rewire our brain for boundaries. We have to create a new neural pathway. That is how I would explain it in terms of science. In terms of behavior, I would like to say that we have to create a new habit. We have to first understand, be in the awareness that this is what I have to do. This is the choice I have to make. There is a lot of time which happens between knowing that this is a choice I have to make and actually making the choice. Honor yourself. Talk to a teacher. When I go through such situations, I ask my teacher, okay, I want to make this, and usually when I go and sit with my teacher or my mentor and I tell her this is what is going on. At the end of the day, she'll just ask me a few questions, and at the end of the day, she said, see, you already had all answers lie within. So she says that, Ashwini, you had the answers within you. So we all have the answers. Like me as a coach, a lot of people who are in this field, we only show you the mirror. All answers lie within. We just ask questions and tweak them in such a manner that you ask the right, it hits the right buttons and you yourself come to the solution. So I think when we talk about how do we put boundaries, it's a habit, but uske pehle it's an awareness, uske pehle it's a thought. And if it comes from, like if you have memories where you were ridiculed for having boundaries, you will not go there because the neural pathway is already being put in your brain.
Correct.
Doing this will invite.
But then are you saying that, when we are kids, we are children, how, we were treated as children emotionally?
Yes.
It matters a lot?
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of our programming happens as a child. And that's why they say that treat children well so that they become good people. But no one knows how to actually, that's why there is a lot of conscious parenting which is coming up now. But having said that, it's never too late. Even at 35 and 40, you can still change those neural pathways. Because
parents is something we cannot choose, right? Our environment at that age is something we cannot choose.
So logically we cannot, spiritually we choose our parents because we choose the perfect environment, the perfect person from whom we take birth. And every person around us has there is some karmic reason why we have chosen people in our life. So before we were born, we sat with our spiritual guides, with our masters, and we were told that, okay, come on, so you will go on earth now, you will get a name, you will be Ashwini Chube, and this will be your work, and we sit and we create that whole life blueprint, and then we come and we pass through what they call as the wheel of amnesia, or we forget all of that.
So basically, if you say that, does that mean that everything is pre-decided, I don't do anything?
No, so everything is not pre-decided, but everything is pre-decided. The basic blueprint is pre-decided.
Okay.
The experiences which we will have in our life, we choose those experiences, but those little choices we still have. We still have free will choice. So a person who comes into my life, if I have say a toxic boss, maybe that person is to come in my life because I have chosen at some point of time to have that person. But after that person ill-treats me, what choices do I make? That is
on me. And do I get stuck on that, or I actually move ahead with that?
You move ahead with that. You process those emotions. You see what's happening.
Yeah, because I think most of us, we also, with some people, we get just stuck onto them.
Yes. Because we have pending karma. Again, going back to that. But having said that, you can choose to release the karma. I always talk about the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is a very powerful prayer.
What is that?
So Ho'oponopono prayer is a Hawaiian prayer. It is just 4 sentences. I am sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you.
Okay.
When you are having difficult interaction with someone, and it's like many people in case they have toxic partners, toxic bosses, toxic co-workers, or maybe someone whom you meet every day, who see every day. You have pending karma with them and you want to break the cycle, because otherwise the journey of victim and perpetrator keeps happening every life. So they hurt you, next life you hurt them, and
Then again
they
it
hurt
goes
you,
on.
and this goes on as a cycle. So to end all of that, the beautiful prayer of Ho'oponopono, which is from the lands of Hawaii, and the prayer has simple 4 sentences. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you. So apparently there was Dr. Ilaikala Hugh Len, also called as Dr. Len. There was a ward in Hawaii where there were criminal patients, mental patients. So imagine, there are murderers, there are people who have committed heinous crimes, and they are also mentally disturbed. No one stayed in that hospital, no doctor stayed in that hospital. That hospital was in complete chaos. The staff would quit after every few days, and the patients were stuck. Dr. Hewland said that I'm going to do an experiment, just give me the patient's files, I will not see them in person, but I just need to see the files of the patients. And he saw each patient's file. Now when he saw the patient's file, he realized that what have they done. So imagine they have done really a very heinous crime towards someone. Dr. Hewland would get that anger, and then he would talk to that anger in him after reading that, and he would say, I am sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you. Whom are you saying it to? You are not saying it to any person specifically. You are saying it to that emotion which is created in you. After when we hear stories of things going really bad in the world, if each one of us could just chant these few sentences for a few times.
But what exactly does that do? I mean, chanting these 4 mantras or words.
So subconsciously we are connected to every atom, every molecule in the universe, and our subconscious is connected to the entire subconscious of the universe. When I am saying I am sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you, I am healing that part of me which is holding somewhere on to that emotion, and thus we create an impact, an effect of healing the collective subconscious. Now, as theoretical as this may seem, Dr. Hewland saw results with this. They tried everything else but nothing was working with that ward. And when Dr. Hewland started practicing Ho'oponopono on every patient file, over a period of few months, doctors started seeing changes, improvements in the health of the patients.
But he was doing, he was just looking at the files and he was
Healing
doing this prayer.
Yes.
He was not even meeting the...
He was not even meeting them.
Okay.
Then how can this work? Isn't
Yeah,
it a
exactly.
big, event is a big mystery. But they had tried everything else and nothing worked. And when he started this, after another 6-8 months, he saw that people started getting better. People started getting discharged. Their relatives would never come to even see them. Relatives started seeing the patients. Then they also saw to it that some of them were discharged, to this extent that over some time that ward was shut because everyone was discharged. Yes, there was only one patient who was shifted to some other hospital for better treatment, but that ward was shut. And if you just go on any search engines and put Ho'oponopono and Dr. Hewland, you will read this entire experiment, and it's also called as the Hewland experiment of the Ho'oponopono. And then Dr. Joe Vitale started this entire Ho'oponopono movement across the world. I had the privilege to learn from Dr. Joe Vitale, of course not in person, it was an online training, but through those trainings he just put across how the entire process of Ho'oponopono works, how we are connected to every atom molecule in the universe, how we at a subconscious level can make a change, even if one person. And I feel now there are so many people doing these practices that it is impacting the collective at some level.
But when you said that the ward got shut, so was it like they were healed, all the people,
Yes.
the patients?
Yes, the patients were healed, they were discharged, and they went back home.
But then this, I sometimes get very confused in this, because this seems very magical, right? It doesn't have any logic behind it.
So everything will not be logical, because only 10% of the things in the world are operating on logic. That is where our subconscious mind is operating on. See, these words magic and logic were again given for us to divide the the impact of subconscious mind. Very few people know. Why are very few people so successful, and why are the rest in the mediocre? Because the mediocre people who are in the mediocre circle always stay in the logic. They don't go beyond that. They do not harness the power of their subconscious mind. We are only operating at 10% capacity. And there are people who say, I don't believe this is magical. They stay in the 10%. But the people who create history, who create those changes, are at some point of time, in some way or other, harnessing the power of their subconscious mind and creating miracles. Every person who created something new was ridiculed first because they did not sit with the masses. Like one of my mentors says that you have a choice whether you will every day go to work, come back home, watch the TV, see something which is going on, talk about how bad the system is, how bad the leaders are, go to sleep, repeat. Or you can choose to come back home, educate yourself, make new choices, create new neural pathways, heal yourself and do something which gives you happiness. Otherwise you will stay stuck in the bottom 75-80% of the people who are always staying in the mediocre. They are just surviving. These things seem magical because logically it does not make sense. I'm again taking you back to the subconscious and conscious. In beta everything is logic. When your brainwaves slow down, there is where you get these ideas. Probably the idea of this podcast came to you at a theta state. So unknowingly you accessed a theta state and you created this entire universe of this podcast. But that idea came from theta. That idea came from when you were relaxed and when you were accessing the higher codes. And it may seem magical. Today when we look at companies which are doing big, which are creating so much for the world.
With the idea.
It started with an idea. But a mediocre person just says that, chodo, mujhe wo nahi karna.
But then, say for example, you have toxic people in your life and you say this prayer.
Yes.
And you do not set boundaries because that is difficult.
So it's
so
very
saying
funny.
Prayer is very easy.
So I'll give you a very funny example. I had a client who used to come to me all the time complaining. All the time complaining that everything in her life is bad. This is bad, that is bad. People in her organization are bad. She doesn't have good friends. She and her partner keep fighting all the time. She and her mother-in-law keep fighting a lot of toxicity being surrounded by her. And of course she started doing the sessions with me where I would deeply program her at a subconscious level. And I also told her to do the Ho'oponopono prayer. She was very relentlessly doing it. One thing I saw about her that she was very relentless doing, and then there would be a time where she would say, Ashwini, kuch nahi ho raha. And I would say, just keep doing it. Let's have faith over there. And then the people who were in our organization, who were really those mean, unkind people, they either quit those jobs. Some of them were they were transferred to other department or something like that happened. And then she started having people around her who were really supportive. She said that over a period of time, the fights she had with her spouse started reducing. She and her husband moved out of the house where she was living in with her in-laws. And she says that now that me and my mother-in-law, we don't live together, we have a very good relationship because we don't see each other every day, we don't fight. Me and my husband, we live a very peaceful life. My children are now growing up. So now from that space where I was, I've come to a space where I have more peace. Where I have more joy and where things are getting better for me. Now, is this a coincidence? There will be people who will label it as coincidence because there will always be skeptics. I always tell this to people. You will always have skeptics around you. You will always have people who will not believe, but she really created this and then she started choosing more for herself. She started choosing more. She started taking more classes. She started learning more things. She started taking more certifications and she says that I don't want to be a coach, but I'm learning all these things. I don't want to be a healer or a practitioner, but I'm learning these things so that I can live a very happy life in my own way where I have good relationships. What do we want? We want good people around us. We want good health at both emotional, mental and physical level. And we want a good career which rewards us, which pays us good money, which gives us that reward, dopamine boost, as I say, and which gives us money. And where my work environment is so good that every day I look forward to go to work. There are new possibilities. She also got a new boss who was like a godfather or godmother. I don't know whether it was a man or a woman, but They also turned out to be her mentor, and she was sent for some program to study something in her.
Nice.
And so, and there will be people who will say, oh no, this, but from the space where she came, and this is a real example. I don't take names because it's, it's the privacy of the person. But I have seen lives changing. I've seen my own life changing from being 10, 12 years ago, the person who was always very fearful about doing things. I live a life where I can make my choices. I own my choices. I'm not afraid of the judgments of people. And the best part is, because of the inner work I have done, today I have people who really honor me. And I always say that's why I've earned these people.
Yeah.
But before that I chose.
Well, this is really magical.
This is magical, and that's the power of your subconscious mind. I always say I walk the talk. Whatever I practice, whatever I preach, whatever I tell my clients, I first do it on myself.
Yeah.
Because otherwise that would be not so good, not very congruent with what I do. That I teach this, I coach people, and I don't practice it on myself. So before telling people that I would really have good boundaries, I first have started practicing
building boundaries.
Yeah.
Apart from these emotions that we have on a human level, there's certain other emotions and feelings that we have, one being validation.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so I mean, all of us, we look for validation, right? As little as we were kids, we were looking for validation from our parents, then our friends, everyone.
Yes. Teachers.
Yes.
Then our peers in college, then at workplace, and so on and on.
So I mean, validation, why is it important, and when does it become a chain for us?
So anything which keeps us trapped in the loop is a codependency and is toxic to you. So when you're overly dependent on something, so if you get your sense of self-worth on validation, you're going the wrong way. Your sense of self-worth should come from you. Validation will be only an external thing. It's okay. And we live in this world where social media likes,
it
follows,
matters a lot, of course.
Views mean so much to me, which is also a validation. Right?
But if you start living your life from the lens of validation, that, like you said, your self-worth is derived from validation.
Yes. You become the biggest target for your own self-sabotage when you are living from validation. So validation is always looked at as a positive aspect, and judgment is looked at as a negative aspect. Both of them are doing the same to you. When people criticize you, there are so many people who give me feedback that, I want to give this feedback to you, this is what you could do to do better. And I say, thank you for the feedback. Now, do I take that feedback seriously? If I think it really is a contribution to me, I take that. If not, I just leave it. Because one of my mentors had told me that, Ashwini, if you take feedback from everyone you will be no one. So know that only take feedback from people who really see the way you see the life. So feedback, and so when we look at judgment, when every time you upload something on social media, even the who's and the big people, when they put something on social media, there will be so many people who will troll them. Now who are these trolls? They have no identity. Unfortunately, I feel bad for the trolls because somewhere they are trying to make themselves seen, and they are really going through a very difficult time. So I always say that I pray for them, and I hope they make better choices, because everything is eventually a choice. So when we look at judgments, when I wear this blue coat and people say, oh, you shouldn't wear this color coat, it doesn't look on you, your body type, this will not suit you, you should wear this color, everyone will have their, we always say that everyone has their own interesting point of view about everything. If I take everyone's interesting point of view and make it mine, I will have no identity left in the world. So, I will always, in Marathi there is a quote, Aikave janache karave manache, which means listen to everyone, but do what you feel is right, because eventually you are the one who is in charge of your life. So spending time in nature just helps you to connect with the green, it helps you get grounded and connects your energy to earth, the base of who we are. So that's absolutely free, and anyone and everyone can do it. The second one, and this is something I keep talking about and advising people left, right, center, the power of movement. It could be anything. It could be a walk, or it could be yoga, It could be aerobics, Zumba, it could be gym, but some form of exercise and any form of movement will take you way ahead in life. And especially when we talk about emotions and mental health, people who exercise are twice likely to stay happier than people who don't. And because exercise also helps us secrete endorphins. And there is a beautiful dialogue in one of the movies, which was Legally Blonde, in which the character says that people who exercise have endorphins and hence they don't kill anyone. So, because endorphins make you happy. So, we always talk about the DOTS chemicals, that is dopamine, the reward chemical, oxytocin when you hug someone you love and your children, or that is oxytocin, the love chemical, DO. As it's serotonin, the happiness one, where you are being kind or where you just have gratitude for everything, it is serotonin. And of course, endorphin, which comes from exercise. So the second one is exercise. I would recommend everyone, no matter where you are, what you are doing, how busy you are, if you have 1 hour to scroll on reel, you have at least half an hour to exercise. So make sure that in some, if I have a very early day starting at 8 a.m. today, I'll make sure I exercise in the afternoon. You don't need special equipments for that.
Yeah, I think for exercise, it's more about you need to make it a habit. You need to make sure you're doing it every day.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter if you do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but don't break that cycle.
Yes, and even if you exercise, say 4 times a week, it is still going to be better than not exercising at all. And it's high time we make it a part of our lifestyle, just like how we brush our teeth or shower or have lunch. I think exercise is very much important. The second one is exercise, of course. The third one, which is my favorite, and I always say that journal your thoughts. Write down everything that you feel in a day. So I make different sections in my journal. Something that I'm grateful for every day. Something that I look forward to. Then there are days I just have to put some thoughts which are not serving me anymore. And I say that right now I'm being disturbed by the thought of this. Dear universe, please help me release it. So Gabrielle Bernstein, one of my favorite authors, and she's also a motivational speaker and a growth coach, she says that, when you know that the universe has your back. Everything that is happening in the world it's something which is happening for your good, and know that the universe always has your back. So when in my journal, I also write my prayers. You don't have to formally write a prayer. You can just think of any divine being you believe in, whether it is Krishna or it is Jesus Christ or whatever your faith allows you to, or whatever it is. You could write a prayer in your journal. So there are days when I feel so overwhelmed, I simply write a prayer. So in my journal, I have sections. I have a gratitude section. I have a prayer section. I have a section for what I look forward to. Then there are days where I listen to something. I listen to a quote, I hear a quote, or I see a quote, I write it down. So I think this is one of the best ways to make your mental health better, and it's a very easy process. You just need a book and a pen, and that's it. And then you can color, and color therapy is very important. So I also do a lot of doodling, and I use a lot of colors in my journal. It just really helps you connect deeper to your creative side. And that's how authors are born too. So sometimes I've written so many diaries and journals, and I feel, wow, I could use it as a publication. Sometimes writing is very therapeutic. So the third thing is journaling. The fourth thing is, I would say, the power of sound. So we are looking at all senses, right? When we are looking out in the nature, we are also looking out, we are feeling the earth below our feet, we are listening to the sounds of the nature. But just like that, I always talk about sound therapy specifically. We are fortunate to be in a generation where we have YouTube, where we have Spotify, where we have Apple Music. There is something called as binaural beats. And there are frequencies for feeling happiness, for feeling joy, for helping you release emotions. So the sounds of binaural beats can really transform you at another level, because they work with the frequencies, and in this universe, frequency is everything, right? So when you tap into those particular hertz sound, even chakras have frequencies. So when we talk about, even when I do chakra balancing, especially when I do the chakra retreats, I make people work with every chakra has a vibration, and we make people listen to those sounds. There are also guided meditations available. We are so fortunate to be in this generation where we have guided meditations. There are so many apps which give you guided meditations. And again, I'm going back to the subconscious programming. Sound therapy can help you at a subconscious level. And the fifth one, and last but not the least, is your breath. And consciously breathing. Now there is something called as pranayam, which I practice every day. In spite of today having really a very busy morning, I made sure that I did my pranayam practice. What is pranayam? You are consciously breathing. There are methodologies of breathing, and through that breath work, you can change your structure. You can change the inner chemical composition too. So our ancestors were really smart, and the reason why 5,000 years ago people were living such a rich life was because they practiced all of this, right? So pranayam practice, simple pranayam practice can really change your life. And to add to it, I would say that practice at the sunrise, if you can get the sun rays on you, because sunrise, the rays of sun can really change your mental state. If people who always stay in the house, they don't get exposed to sunlight, there are more chances of them having a lower state of mental health. And that's the reason in the Scandinavian countries where there is no sun, the rate of depression is high during the winter. So I would say that do breath work in sunlight, and that's the reason why we used to have the concept of sunrise pranayam. So
Surya Namaskar.
Surya Namaskar. So Surya Namaskar is where you breathe along with the motions, the actions, which the sequences which you follow. So it will again go in the movement thing, which I said as the second point here. Why I'm specifically talking about breathing is because a lot of people think yoga is only exercise. No, yoga is, it's both, it's dhyana, it's pranayam, and then it is asana. So of course, along with the
yoga,
movement,
it works not only on the body but also on the mind and emotions.
So when you change your breathing, it changes the chemical composition in your body. So pranayam practice can work with your chakras, with your energy body. It can help you realign a lot of things. It can help you come to peace with yourself. And my particular favorite, which is always my favorite, is the Brahmari pranayam, which is the humming bee sound, where you close your ears, you put your hands in a particular mudra, and then when you breathe in and when you breathe out, you make sound like a humming bee, which is excellent for your throat, which is excellent for the oxygen supply. It really helps you with the oxygen supply for your body. And do it in sunlight, because the sunlight will add to the pranayam practice. So breathing and sunlight, I'm putting it together. Then there is sound therapy.
Yes.
There is journaling and expressing.
Yeah, being in nature.
Being in nature. And of course, movement. So these are my 5 top things for a good mental health. Also make sure what you consume. Last but not the least, although I've given you 5. If you're going to constantly keep yourself watching everything which is toxic, whether it is OTT, whether it is social media, where they show a lot of violence, where they show a lot of things and they show it as the reality. A lot of people get impacted by that. So choose what you watch, choose what you read. If you're going to watch episodes of Crime World back to back, you're going to have nightmares about it. Because that is what you're programming your mind to. Again, your subconscious is listening. So never even do things as a joke for some time, because your subconscious is always listening. And I always tell people that stay away from too much of junk food, alcohol and all of that. Like we spoke to, stay away from toxic people, narcissists, gaslighters and abusers. And stay away from anything which you are consuming from outer media.
And you always have a choice, right? I mean, you always have a choice what you are consuming.
Absolutely. And stay away from everything which is toxic, which you're watching or listening or reading. These are some of the basics which if you can do, you can lead a life where you can live with a lot of happiness and joy. And respect your journey. Know that don't be too hard on yourself. Don't try to seek perfectionism. Like, to end this talk, I will say that yesterday my mentor said that procrastination, perfectionism are the 2 biggest diseases of the 21st century. So don't do them. Heal yourself, live a good life and live happily.
Thank you so much, Ashwini. It has been a great talk. I have learned a lot from it. And I hope it is useful for our viewers as well. If you have any comments on the topics that we have covered, we would love to listen to you. if you have any issues that you are going through and you want us to cover your particular issues, please do write to us at happierhour.sg@gmail.com. We would try our best to take your particular scenarios in our podcast. Of course, we'll not be taking your name, it will be anonymous, but yes, we will try to discuss about your issues and hopefully we can help you out. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thank you so much.